Good morning, Stampers. Welcome to Learning with Friends. I am Pat Fairless from Fairless Stamp and Flair. And today the technique I'm going to show you is called color blocking. Now, in my research and figuring out how to do this, I found out there's actually a few different ways to do it, and maybe more than I found out. So rather than take a really long time today, I'm going to break it into two parts. So we're going to do part one today. It seemed like the main two differences between the different ways to do it had to do with masking versus cutting it into pieces. So I'm going to show you the masking portion or part of the technique today. And then when I come back, then probably not the next time, but probably January 2nd, assuming all goes as planned, I will show you part two, which is cutting it into pieces. And I'm not sure yet which is preferred. I kind of liked this masking, but we'll see how it goes. And I hope I didn't forget a bunch of stuff again today, like I've done the last few times. But let me flip my camera down and we will get started. Now I have my glass mat because we're going to use blending brushes, and it's just easier to kind of keep the area clean without a lot of stuff. I know we got some glare in certain places. I apologize. I don't think there's really any way to avoid glare when you have light shining down on glass. So the first thing, let me show you the card I'm going to make today. And I'm not going to make the whole card. I'm just going to show you how to do this technique. So this is the card. This is the final card. And I used the Enduring Beauty stamp here in the center. So we're going to start with a piece of basic white. This is 5 by 3 3/4. And I am using my Stamparatus. I find a positioning tool sometimes with these larger stamps is helpful for me, because that way I can do it twice if I want to. Now, I wasn't going to emboss this for you because this is not really the purpose of the technique to show you how to do embossing, but I was thinking about it and I thought I'd go ahead. If you have some sort of positioning tool, I have a couple tips when using a photopolymer stamp. I'm going to adhere this to my surface here with temporary adhesive. Temporary adhesive rubs right off. If you've been watching me at all, you've seen me use it several times before. It just kind of helps you to hold things in place. We do have the magnets, and I'm going to show you why I like to do this. So let's go ahead and lay our Enduring Beauty stamp. This is large and it just fits on the cardstock. So I'm just going to center it on here. And then I will close my Stamparatus, whatever positioning tool. These are no longer available. Stampin' Up! Did discontinue them. But there's a MISTI out there that is very similar. So I don't know if you can see this, but as I start to lift this up, it wants to lift the paper. And I haven't got any ink or anything of any sort on here yet, so it doesn't really matter. But let me just double check that I didn't move it. This is why I like to use the adhesive on the back. The temporary adhesive is because it helps, even though it wants to lift, it helps prevent it from lifting. Okay, so now I'm going to ink this with Versamark after I rub this with my embossing powder. Buddy. Embossing powder? No, it's an embossing buddy. It just helps to get rid of any static that you might have. So let's go ahead and ink this up. I don't know if I pressed it. It's not seeming to stick on here. Give this a good press. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's got some grit and dust on it or something. Usually photopolymers are very hard to get off. So, all right, now I'm going to give this a good rub. And here's one of my tips, is I have a little thin scale that I like to stick under here and just kind of help, in addition to the magnets, hold the paper down, because with this photopolymer, and especially with Versamark, for some reason it really wants to stick to this paper, and it lifts it, and then there goes your positioning, right? That's the whole point, is that it doesn't move. Now, the second time it doesn't matter if I lift it up. So without sticking my little scale in there, let me show you what I find often happens. And I'm going to pull it up just like normal. Can you see how it's lifted? Now, it might still be okay, but I just like to take a little extra precaution. So there's it is now stamped with Versamark. We're done with that. And I'm going to emboss this with white embossing powder. And here's where I thought, well, they really don't need to watch me cook this, but we're going to give it a shot. I have a backup if something doesn't work very well. So you can see, even though I stamped this twice, I am still missing some areas out here, but I've removed it. So it's too late now. That's why, by the magic of television, I have one, not that one, that's already embossed. And it is hard to see. But embossing wasn't really the part of the technique that I wanted to show you anyway. What I really want to show you today is how to do color blocking. Color up my Versamark. And I'm just going to wipe off the grit. If you've watched me before, you know I don't like grit on my work surface. Kind of drives me a little crazy. One of those pet peeves, I guess. So just dry that. So now I'm going to show you how to do the color blocking. And again, what I found helpful is I took this and I stuck it to my work surface. It just keeps it from moving around. Let me make sure I get this nicely in the center here. And now I'm going to take masking tape. And you can use whatever kind of masking tape you have, painter's tape. I have this Post-it labeling tape that I like. And I'm just going to take a couple of pieces, and we'll do this quadrant up here first. So make sure I have this, so I think I want it in this direction. I want the flowers up. We'll flip that over. And I'm just going to lay this corner to corner. And then I'll get a second piece and lay it corner to corner in the opposite direction. And then we're going to take our blending brushes, and I'm going to start with, I'm going to use 2 colors in each quadrant. So up here I have Bubble Bath and Berry Burst. I'm going to start with the lightest one, because then if I use the darker one second on my brush, it's no big deal. And I'm going to do the outside portion in the lighter color. And this is why I like the glass mat, because I can just start off the glass mat or start on my tape, whichever I prefer. Bubble Bath is not very dark, so to get some color, it takes a bit of rubbing. But you can see I'm just keeping that towards the outside till I get it about as dark as I want. That's all a matter of taste. You can use whatever colors you like. I decided to use color buddies for each quadrant. You could do each quadrant all the same color, and I have cards that I'm going to show you where I did do that. I didn't blend multiple colors in a section. I just used a single color, but I thought for this card, I would do a little bit more blending just to show you the options you have. This is Berry Burst, and we're going to color here in the center. And I'm going to start on my tape and just kind of blend outward. And we'll get the center. The reason I'm using the darker colors in the center is because it really makes the white embossing powder pop. And if you want to blend it out, just kind of push it out a little bit, just to blend. This part of it really is personal taste, I think. Everybody likes blending a little bit differently. Now you're going to want to take a cloth or a clean paper towel and just wipe this off, because you want to get it off from the embossing powder or the embossed surface, right? So then you can really see that design. Now we're going to lift these up and we're going to move it and expose a different quadrant, and you can do whichever ones in whatever order you want. We're just going to go clockwise around my card. I'm going to reuse the same same tape. So now we're going to go corner to corner again in both directions. And here where I'm doing this, I like to do it so I have just the tiniest little bit. If I could line it, if I knew I could line it up perfectly, that would be great. I'm not that good. So it's easier for me to have just a tiny little bit of the pink. And for some reason, I keep moving it. It's easier to do it when you don't have a camera right on top of it. So I have a tiny, tiny little bit of pink there. You probably can't even see it. I can't really see it either. But the thing you want to make sure of is that you don't get a little white gap. I guess that's the main point. So then let's do this little quadrant over here in greens. So I grabbed a couple more color buddies, and I've got Granny Apple Green and Lemon Lime Twist. If you're wondering how I know they're color buddies, there is a chart that Stampin' Up! Has that shows you which ones they consider color buddies. And it just really means they're both in the same tone of green. Like we know how many different greens there are, right? Some are yellowy, some are more blue. And when they call them a color buddy, it just means that they're in the same tone of green and that they blend well together. So that's what I'm using color buddies. Again, I could put green, I could blend other colors, right? I could blend green with blue if I wanted. That could be very pretty. All right. And again, I put the lighter of the two, which is the Granny Apple Green, on the outer edge. And that's the Lemon Lime Twist. I'm sorry, did I say Granny Apple Green? I think I did. We're going to use Granny Apple Green now here in the center and blend it out. For this particular card, I thought blending the two different colors was kind of nice. It just seemed to give it a little bit more depth. On one of the other cards, I use solid colors, but it's more the design of that card that made that appropriate to just use a totally solid color without blending two colors together. So, all right, let's move down and do the bottom one. So I'm going to go back to my corner to corner. And then here I'm going to lay it, so again I've got just the tiniest little bit of green that I can see. You don't want too much, but it's better to have it a little bit exposed than to have a white gap. That's all I'm really trying to avoid is like I said, the white gap. So now we're going to use our yellows, and I've got Lemon Lolly and Daffodil Delight, which are also color buddies. Crushed Curry is another color buddy of these three. Some colors have one buddy, some colors have two buddies. So we'll just get the outside here. It's nice when you're using two of the same colors, then I don't feel bad about using the same blending brush. Start with the light one, and if a little of this Lemon Lolly ends up in the Daffodil Delight pad, no one's ever going to notice. But if I were to use blue and yellow, and I had a blue one of these blending brushes, then for some reason forgot to switch to the other brush, I would definitely have blue ink in my pad when I did that. So I try to make it easy for myself and not have to worry about that. It's easier to remember to do that, not 100% when you're not talking. When I'm yapping at you guys, then I don't always remember everything. Just like I don't always remember to tell you everything after I'm done. I'm like, oh, I forgot to tell them this. Or, oh, I forgot to tell them this. So while I'm thinking of it, Christmas is in 6 days. So I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas in case I forget to do it at the end. I was actually going to do it at the beginning and forgot. So now we have one left. So we will lay this again, corner to corner, with the smallest of yellow showing and the smallest of the pinks showing. I don't think I wiped that last one off either, did I? Because I was too busy yapping. It's easy to get distracted. So I have Lost Lagoon and Pretty Peacock for this last section. And we're going to use Lost Lagoon as our light color here along the outside edge. This is pretty easy. If you like blending and using your blending brushes, this is a great technique. Okay, let's call that one good. It's actually pretty fast as well. And you can make as varied backgrounds as your imagination would give you. It's all different. We're doing like 4 quadrants and triangles here. You can make squares. You can do however you want to move your masks around. And I have a couple other ones that I will show you. Okay, now this time I'm going to try to remember to wipe it off. I hope it didn't mess it up by putting the tape down on something that wasn't wiped. I think it'll be fine with the yellow. That's fine. But I still want to wipe it because it'll just take that ink off and brightens up the embossing. It makes it so much easier for that embossing to pop. Okay. So that is that is how you do color blocking in a 4-quadrant pattern. You could color block in stripes. Let me show you a couple of the other cards. Again, here's the card I did with that. I practiced first on a piece that I kind of messed up. So let me tell you the hint about that. I know I usually tell you to start with a larger piece of cardstock and then cut it down to whatever size you want. So that's what I did the first time I did this particular card. I started out with a 5 1/4 by 4 1/4, and then I went to trim it down, and now these things were no longer corner to corner, even though I tried to take the same amount off on all sides. I ended up where a line was like going like this. That's exaggerated, but it was going like that. So that was this piece, the first time I did it. And so I had some spares. I had a spare sheet that I just cut into pieces, and I used it for my inside. And then I had a couple of strips left that I used for my envelope as well. So it worked out all right. You can always make use of our scraps, right? So this next card I'm going to show you, I didn't do multi-tonal blending. I just used a rainbow of colors, colors of the rainbow from red to purple. And this particular stamp set that I used is called Drizzling Droplets. I didn't realize until after I finished the card that the Drizzling Droplets stamp set has been retired. I have not had this very long. It was an online exclusive, I think came out maybe in July. And I bought it right when it came out, but apparently it didn't stick around for long, because when I went to look up some information on it, I realized it is retired. But I thought I'd show you the card anyway, just so you get an idea of different ways to use this color blocking as a background here. I made this rectangular and then just laid it on an angle and cut it down to the front of the card. So very simple. Just mask a stripe, masked another one. I purposely did not try to make them all equal. That was too hard to figure out how to divide my length by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because it came out to something like, I don't know, 0.285 or something weird. And I'm like, it's too hard. So just vary them. So that's what I did on that card. And then the last card I'm going to show you is, I saw someone do something similar to this and used masking. This card was made with a couple different stamp sets, actually. I used Wildflower Designs and Thoughtful Wishes. I used images from those, just different flowers. And the masking here was done at an angle. So the tape was laid at an angle, and then the images were stamped. And I also wanted to try to play with using something other than white embossing powder, because all the examples I had seen in my research all had white embossing powder. And I'm like, why is it got to be white? Why can't I use black or silver or gold, right? So I thought, well, I'll get brave and try it with black. So I did this with black. And the intent was that I would not need to add a piece here for my sentiment, that I could just stamp the sentiment in the white strip, because I kept a white strip. However, just as a hint, if you want to use black, you're probably not going to be able to do that unless you're a lot better at this than I am. Because even though I had it masked and I stamped the images with the masking tape in place, my stem bottoms still weren't really even. So I had kind of a jagged, I had a white strip, but they had little stems going in and here and there. And it just, I didn't like the look of it too much. So I decided I was going to pop up a sentiment on here, and I kind of like it anyway because it adds a little bit more dimension to the card. And then this was blended with 4 different colors, Pool Party, and these are all color buddies as well. Pool Party, Coastal Cabana are color buddies, and then down here, again, it was the Lost Lagoon and Pretty Peacock. And even these 2 color buddies are close enough that they work as color buddies to these. So let me show you the inside of that card. I just stamped some images. I was gonna blend down there, but I'm like, it's not really, that's not color blocking. Color blocking is when you have different colors. So I decided I just kind of liked it clean and simple. And I did the same thing across the bottom of the envelope. Now I didn't even heat emboss this. I didn't heat emboss this with black. This is just stamped with black memento. So I kept that really easy. If you want to try a card similar to this with this angle, I have a couple hints. It is helpful to make a template where you just stamp. So here was now this particular card is easy to cut down to size. It's the one with these triangles it doesn't work very well. But because I'm stamping with Versamark on white, it is really hard to see. And these are not photopolymer stamps. These were cling stamps. And so getting the spacing of each of these flowers, I'd have them overlapping. I'd have bigger gaps than I wanted. So I found that if I just took a scrap of white and stamped it first, I could more easily see where to put them when I did my Versamark version. The other thing that's helpful, I learned, and I did not do that on here, is when you measure, I had a 1-inch strip, measure, mark a tick mark. Figure out what you want your angle to be, measure, go up an inch and do a tip mark. So that, as you can see here, this is wider than this down here because I didn't get my masking on here straight. It was really hard as I laid my tape. I'll just take this and explain a minute. Let's just take a minute and explain. This is Learning with Friends is all about learning, right? So keep giving you tricks. So you have this tape on here. And now you can stamp your images, right? Now you're going to pick this up. And you're going to try to lay this. Oh, my hair's sticking to it. You're going to lay this and try to get it even with this one, but you can't see it. At least not with my masking tape, because my masking tape is, 2 inches. If you had a 1-inch piece of masking tape, I would just lay that down the center and then stamp the top and the bottom, and you wouldn't have that problem. But if you don't, if you have wider tape like I do, then take a little pencil and just measure 1 inch and 1 inch, and then you can see where to lay your tape. So that's my free learning tip. Nothing really to do with masking, except when I tried to do this, I figured that out the hard way, let's say, as you can see. So let me flip my camera back and just put the cards back out here so you can see them one more time. And I hope you found some good tips out of there about color blocking. And we will wrap this up. So again, I hope you learned something. That's always my goal, and that's my main goal, is to teach you some tips and tricks and maybe a new technique. I love getting your comments. Thank you for those that leave comments. That's awesome. And again, have a very, very Merry Christmas. I am 50-50 if I'm going to be here for Learning with Friends on the day after Christmas. I'm not 100% sure, still haven't decided. But until then, have a wonderful week, a wonderful Christmas, and God bless.